I got my driver's license when I was 18 years old in my first year of college. Normally, at that age, people tend to get their driver's license way earlier than that and way before graduating high school. They can't wait until they get their hands on a license with their name on it, ready to feel the freedom of being able to drive anywhere they desire to go. That wasn't my case at all. Back around the time in high school, I remember the thought of learning to drive scaring me to death. I saw everyone else around me beginning to learn, but I didn't see it as something that I should get done. Every time my parents brought up the conversation of driver's ed to me, I did all I could to walk right out of the conversation. I can never picture myself sitting in the driver's seat controlling the wheel and driving amongst other cars at traffic lights and especially freeways. It all seems so dangerous to me. Thoughts will run through my head thinking about, what if I got into an accident? What if I cause an accident? What about if I get pulled over? How can I drive through such a busy parking lot? What if I fall asleep at the wheel? There is always an anxious feeling that runs through my mind every time I think about driving, that I begin to think, was it worth going through the trouble of getting one? I also felt like it was a sign of growing up and becoming more independent. At the time, that wasn't something that I was striving for, a responsibility that I wasn't ready to face. But that all changed eventually. I began to notice my friends getting their driver's license and having their own cars, and being able to drive straight home from school and not having to wait on a ride like me. It began to feel like I was becoming a burden, especially to my parents. I always wanted to go over to a friend's house and hang out with them really late, and my parents began getting annoyed at how late I called them to pick me up. Even some of my friends began to persuade me to get a license. I began to feel a burden to them as well because they had to drive everywhere when we were hanging out together, and I was unable to cause them to not have a break. Freshman year of college is what made me change my mind completely on the thought of driving. Moving away from home to college was the start of my independence that I was beginning to accept. I met new amazing people who are my friends till this day, and they don't realize how much they made me change my mind completely on the thought of getting a license. All I had was my learner's permit at the time, but I became more ready than ever to get the actual license. Looking back, it's interesting how I went from not wanting to get a license at all to me now not waiting any longer to get my hands on one. I feel like me starting to become independent helped as well. I began living away from my family and began to take care of myself on my own, and it felt exciting. But I also felt incomplete because I still didn't have my license. Now I was ready to take that on. I wasn't scared of the thought of being behind the wheel, nor scared of the possibility of getting in an accident. I am aware that it can still happen. However, as long as I stay calm and watch my surroundings, I would have nothing to worry about. I got my license in the beginning of 2020, and it goes down as one of the greatest days of my life so far. It may not seem big to others, but it was a big deal because, like I said before, I went from feeling afraid to even getting behind the wheel to now loving to drive anywhere and everywhere.
A rich man's world. A rich man's world.